Hey guys, today I am reacting to Geography Now, Iran. So, this should be mad interesting. Iran is a fascinating country. Very long history, amazing food, cool sights. Yeah, there's a lot to Iran, I know. And Iran is not just Persians, so, all the Iranian ethnic groups and such, so. It's also you know Iranian and Farsi is a Indo-Iranian or Indo-European language. It's pretty interesting, and the script in Iran at least is related to the Arabic script, but the language itself is what's called Indo-European. But the writing itself is kind of like similar to Arabic, I know. But yeah, Iran is a really interesting and ancient country. I really like Iranian history and such. So let's get into it.
Not call most of. Do not call most of these people
Arabs, I'm guessing. Yeah, Iranians are not Arabs.
Arabs.
Yeah, I knew it.
It's time to learn geography.
Now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. Okay, let me break this down so you can quickly get the distinction. You've heard of Persia, right? The Persian Empire, Persian rugs, Persian cats.
And Persian is just an ethnic group in Iran.
Prince of Persia, which by the way, Disney got incredibly accurate. Yes, Persia is pretty much synonymous with Iran. Now, not everyone in Iran is Persian, but it's a huge part of their story, which we will begin discussing now.
Yeah, there's also Kurds and other groups.
Okay, let's be frank. Iran seems to get their fair share of the news quite often in the Western media. However, conflict issues aside, Iran has a deep history and story in the Middle East.
And that's a pretty cool flag, although I do prefer the previous flag.
Extends millennia in the past that would probably be wise to educate yourself on. First of all, Iran is located in Western Asia, bordered by 7 other countries.
And regarding anthems, I really like the old anthem.
As well as the Caspian Sea to the north, the Persian Gulf,
Vatanam.
and the Gulf of Oman to the south, divided by the Strait of Hormuz, which is like one of the most important sea passages in the world. Hey, it's Arabian Gulf. Most people have called it Persian Gulf, and it's been that way for centuries. Plus, Arabs have their own sea. Just let them have it.
Yeah, Persian Gulf is cool.
The country is divided into 31 provinces, with the capital Tehran located in the north-central.
I heard this area de Noto, like nearby this sea, is really nice to live in. It's a nice temperature.
Region. Now keep in mind, before Tehran, Iran actually had 30 previous capitals throughout their history, more than any other country in the world. Otherwise, Iran also divides the country into 5 non-constituent unit regions for administrative purposes, each one containing 6 provinces, except for one region containing 7, which also includes the capital. Finally, although they are administered by Iran, the country also has a current dispute over the Abu Musa and the Greater and Lesser Tum Islands with the United Arab Emirates, nearby the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. After Tehran, the largest cities are Mashhad in the east and Isfahan in the center, and the largest airports are of course Tehran's 2 twins, Mehrabad and Imam Khomeini International, Mashhad International, and Shiraz International. Iran also takes ownership of about 30 or so islands in the Gulf and technically 1 island in the Caspian Sea, Ashur Ade Island, which however it's kind of more like a loose peninsula. One thing you have to understand is that Iran takes their position and borders very seriously, as they are kind of like a land bridge located right at the crossroads between the Middle East, the Caucasus, as well as the Central and South Asian regions. The most important and largest seaport would be Bandar Abbas, which also houses the Iranian Navy, located right at the entrance at the Strait of Hormuz. Otherwise, due to its incredible history, Iran is overflowing with landmarks and sites. Some of the top notable ones might include places like Nakhshe-Jahan Square, Milad Tower, Golestan Palace, Persian Garden, the Armenian monastic ensembles of Iran, the Tomb of Hafez, the Yazadi Tower Freedom Monument, the Pigeon Tower, Yazd, the holiest place for Zoroastrians, Chogazanbil Zikrat, the Mayamand Cave Village, the Imam Reza Shrine, the Khaju Bridge, Argebam, the Shushtar Hydraulic System, the Tomb of Cyrus the Great, the Tomb of Daniel. Too many famous mosques and shrines to list, and pretty much everything in Persepolis. Iran was able to build so much of their own personal space, partially due to the fact that they were easily well protected by natural boundaries, or barricaded in. You decide. Let's explain in. You know what's funny? The world's hottest surface temperature ever recorded was 70.7 degrees Celsius in the Lut Desert in Iran, and yet Iran is also like the best ski resort area in the Middle East. First of all,
yeah, they definitely have nice cool areas as well.
Its most important topographical barriers are the Zakhros Mountains in the west, which also contain the largest lake, Urmia, and the mountains also feed the longest river, the Karun, in the south, which flows into the Gulf, as well as the Alborz Mountains along the north, which contain the largest...
if I had to live in Iran, I might live in this that borders. Wait, what was it again?
In the south, which flows into the Gulf, as well as the Alborz Mountains along
The Alborz, yeah. I might live in this region if I had to live in Iran. Seems like the nicest, like coolest region, I think.
the north, which
Best
contains
temperature.
the largest mountain, Mount Damavand, which is also the tallest volcano in all of Asia. Like, it's still active. There's so much mining potential in these mountains as well, which makes Iran the largest producer of turquoise and zinc. Otherwise, they have two main deserts, the Kavir and Lut, located in the central plateau. And the only real flat part of Iran is in the Khuzestan region right
I've heard that that area is very rich. This Khuzestan
next
region.
to Iraq. Iran is right on the boundary of the Arabian and Eurasian tectonic plates, which in return makes Iran the country with the most number of major earthquakes, of at least 5.5 on the Richter scale annually.
Oof.
Mine are bigger. Yeah, well, mine are explodier.
Now, Iran is kind of like this strange anomaly that sticks out from the rest of the Middle East because it has alpine mountains with
Beautiful.
flowers and snow and water and green, especially
So
in
beautiful.
the north along the coast of the Caspian. I mean, sure, there are dry, arid deserts too, but overall, Iran is a lot more lush. This allows them to harbor river valleys for
And Tehran seems to be more like in the northern region as well.
agriculture, which makes them the #1 producer of pistachios,
Oh yeah, I love pistachios. I always get like unshelled pistachios though because they're easier. But there is a charm in shelled pistachios as well.
saffron,
Saffron is okay, yeah.
stone fruits. By the way, Iranians love saffron. They put it in like half of everything. Speaking of which, some top foods from Iran might include things like pomegranate walnut stew, kuku, mirza kasemi, various rice dishes like jewel
Oh yeah, lots of different rice dishes.
rice, bakala, lubia, shirin, various kebabs like juje, kubide,
They're
torsh,
kebabs,
and
yeah.
bakhyari. Desserts like rosewater pudding, khalva, sarshir, bami, nokhotchi, and falude. By the way,
Delicious, delicious.
half
Yeah.
those dishes had saffron in them. Alcohol is technically banned.
Apparently, bread used to be more popular in Iran, but then rice sort of arrived later on. Silk Road and all that.
However, people kind of smuggle it in and have their connections. Even the cops
Iranian bread's pretty good at food.
are kind of getting tired of trying to crack down, and many just look the other way and deal
Yeah. Personally, I don't think alcohol should be banned.
with other bigger things. Two other things Iran cannot live without.
Did not prove great in the U.S. in Prohibition era. You should not, religion and government should be separate.
Tea and
And you should rule out corruption.
caviar. In fact,
Caviar, yeah. I've heard they have good caviar with the sea right there.
Iran is the largest producer of caviar in the world, mostly from sturgeons fished off the coast of the Caspian. Speaking
The Caspian Sea has a lot of sturgeon. I heard Russia gets a lot of it from there as well.
of which, Iran surprisingly has quite an array of wildlife, including gazelles, wolves, falcons, storks, buzzards, and of course the famous Persian cat. Speaking of cats, Iran is home to some of the last only few remaining surviving Persian lions, which is not
Damn.
a national animal, Persian leopards, and yes,
Epic. And it kind of reminds me of the old flag of Iran.
even Asiatic cheetahs.
Wait, aren't those like African animals?
Actually-
They used to be all over.
A lot of animals we affiliate with Africa had historically roamed all across the Middle East and Southern Asian regions, which is why today we have elephants in India, rhinos in Indonesia. Unfortunately, most of them have been killed off or incredibly endangered. The more you, unfortunately,
Damn,
know. The biggest natural resource, though, would have to be, no
But yeah, I knew about that. I always found it interesting.
surprise, oil. Iran is the second largest oil producer in the Middle East after Saudi Arabia, and about 60% of their total reserves are located around the Persian Gulf. It's estimated that the country should have about 125 billion barrels in reservoirs, 10% of the world's total reserves, and they pump out about 4 million barrels a day. That's a
Only did better management by the government.
So with all the geographic isolation but abundance of resources, you might wonder, what is life like in Iran? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Now, Iran is interesting because it's caught in this strange new transition period in which everything in the new generation of millennials has a tincture of subtle defiance. First of all, Iran has about 80 million people and is the second most populated country in the Middle East after Egypt and has the highest number of Shias in the world. About 62% of the country is ethnically Persian, whereas the second largest ethnic groups are the Azeris at about 16%, Kurds at about 10%, while the remainder is made up of smaller but noticeable groups like the Lurs, the Baluchi,
And Balochis are like an Iranic group. Persians are Iranic. Kurds also technically Iranic. I think Azerbaijanis are like Turkish, sort of. Turkic, kinda, I don't know.
Arabs, Turkic groups, and others. They also use the Iranian rial as their currency. They use the type CEF outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road. Now let's emphasize this one more time. Persians are not Arabs.
Yeah.
That's like the worst thing you can say to them. First of all, what is it like to be a Persian? Well, you kind of have to understand that Iran evolved a lot differently from all the other countries in the Middle East. History will take way too long to explain, but the quickest way I can put it, Proto-Elamites, Elam, Median Empire, Persian or Achaemenid Empire, Alexander the Great, the Seleucid, Parthian, and Sassanid empires. Islam enters through the Umayyad Caliphate, the Abbasid Caliphate, Saffarids and Samanids come in from the east, then some weird splitting up, the Ghaznavid, Seljuk, and Khwarezmian empires, Mongols!
Yeah, Mongols.
The Ilkhanate, Timurid, Safavid, and Afsharid empires, the Zand and Qajar dynasties, quick Pahlavi dynasty, Islamic Republic, a little drama here and there,
Islamic Republic, yeah, not the best.
and here we are today. Now, the biggest distinction of Iran would probably be the language. The official language of Iran is Persian or Farsi, an Indo-European language also spoken in Afghanistan and Tajikistan, although they have their own dialects, which is completely unintelligible to Arabic. The second largest distinction would be that they are the largest Shia
Other there are some loan words and such.
Muslim country in the world with doctrines that run their ideologies and legislation. If you don't know the difference between Sunnis and Shias, basically, Shias believe that Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law Ali was supposed to be the rightful successor rather than Abu Bakr, who became the first caliph. If you don't know what any of that means, let me make it even easier. Shias, this guy. Sunnis, no, this guy. Done. The interesting thing, though, is that
So a relative of Muhammad, yes.
Persians still
Something
hold
like that.
on to a lot of ancient Persian customs and traditions that predate
Good.
even
That's
Islam.
cool.
For example, for over 3,000 years, Persians and other Persian-related people
I've heard of
throughout
this
the world
holiday.
still celebrate Nowruz, or Persian New Year, usually on March 21st or the vernal equinox. A mostly secular holiday, however, it actually has roots and is considered holy to Zoroastrians.
Amazing.
Zoroastrianism actually
Cool.
started in Iran and at one point was actually the state religion. Persians also have their own distinct art, which usually depicts human figures more often than other Sunni cultures.
There's many like agnostic and atheist people as well.
They have their own traditions,
Not
clothing,
religious.
music, opera, poetry, sports. I mean, polo was invented here, and they have that ancient warrior training thing. They have handicrafts. I mean, everybody knows that Persian rugs are like some of the most sought
Yeah,
after in
absolutely.
the world. But remember, not all Iranians are Persians, and some of these groups have expressed separatist movement desires in the past, but
True,
with pretty
true.
much no actual success.
Like
the second
Kurds.
largest group, the Turkic Azeris, or Azerbaijanis, mostly live in the northwest along the borders of Turkey and the Caucasus regions, where their cousins, the actual Azerbaijanis in Azerbaijan, live. They are basically the same people, except one group speaks Farsi. Although exact numbers are kind of hard to estimate, today there are about twice as many to 3 times more Azeris living in Iran
Although I think Azeris used to speak, like Farsi as well. But they were kind of like Turkicized,
than there are in Azerbaijan. Then you have the Kurds that live along the west as well, and then you have the Arabs that mostly inhabit the flat Khuzestan areas by Iraq. You have the Baluchi people in the southwest along the border with Pakistan. Each of these people groups has their own language, culture, and history. Oh, and keep in mind, Persia is mentioned numerous times in the Bible. Iranian Jews believe that they are descended from Queen Esther, and they, as well as Christians, believe that King Cyrus was prophesied in the book of Isaiah. Speaking of which, although
Yeah, I know there's a lot of Persian Jews. There's also a lot of Persian Jewish immigrants to the U.S. and just Persian immigrants to the U.S. in general. Iranian immigrants. Pretty cool, all things considered.
the vast majority of the population is Shia Muslim, there are communities of non-Muslims, mostly Christians and Jews. However, outside religions are strictly monitored and confined to only a few places of worship, as it is illegal to build churches or synagogues. Selling of literature is
Oh, that's a bit sad, though.
illegal, and apostasy from a Muslim is punishable, which is funny because just like in China, Iran has one of the fastest growing underground Christian communities
I've heard about this, yeah. And non-religious communities
in
as
the
well.
world, and disputedly the most in the Middle East. So how does Iran hold all these people together? Well, in order to speed up the Persian assimilation process, other languages are banned from schools, and they have a system in which cooperation is rewarded and resistance is punished by the IRGC. So it's kind of like, join us and the rewards shall be bountiful.
I have my own thing going on, but thanks.
Join us, and the rewards shall be bountiful. Speaking of which, the government is a little confusing. You have both the regular legislators, and then you have the theocratic leaders.
Get rid of theocratic leaders, please. No more theocracy.
Essentially, the Ayatollah has the most power. He is not only the leader of the country, but also the entire Shia community inside and outside of Iran. He's selected by a community of clerics called the Assembly of Experts, whom also have authority to approve all of the presidential candidates during election time. From there, the president appoints people to the various ministries and offices, whereas the Ayatollah appoints the military leader and handles all other various duties. I don't want to say the Ayatollah is like the Pope of the Shia faith, but in some ways he kind of is.
You
This
should
kind of
not
where
have
the
political
Islamic
power,
Revolution
though.
comes into play play and where all the modern drama with Iran kind of starts. Long story short, they took down the Shah, which they believed was a Western puppet figure, and then they instituted a more conservative Islamic republic. This changed everything. The thing is, this was all nearly half a century ago. Today, an entirely new generation of modernized, digital, tech-savvy Iranians has entered the stage, and the country is seeing a completely new culture shift that they can't stop. About 70% of the country is under 30 years old, many of whom don't really even like the rules, which means you have a lot of intrepid youths running the show now. Even the police are getting way more lenient because the police are getting younger too. Everyone in Iran is now kind of trying to find like loopholes and subtle cheats to avoid the religiously imposed laws. Although the hijab is required for all women in public, most women just loosely wear it, exposing their necks and front hair, almost as if it's like a fashion accessory rather than a religious article. Skateboarding, punk rock, and metal culture has already penetrated the youth, even women, although it's interesting because it's like Persian punk rock and metal. People meet at underground clubs and parties all the time wearing whatever they want with open bars and music. If you catch them in their element, Persians are actually seriously like some of the most fun people you'll ever meet. And the crazy thing is, everybody knows about this. It's nothing shockingly new to the police or government. It gives them a little bit of a headache, but after half a century, it's kind of like, dude.
Just get rid of those leaders eventually, hopefully. I guess when they die, hopefully things will get better. And you can just like join the world stage, get free trade. I'd love to visit Iran and man.
Whatever. Yeah, you didn't really expect that, did you? Persian punk rock rebels with hijabs and skateboards.
I've heard
and
stuff
that's
like
what goes on
actually.
the inside. Now let's see how they reach out.
I know a few Persians, yeah.
Now here's where things get a little tricky because in order to understand Iran's outside relations, again, you kind of have to look at Iran through the lens of both pre- and post-1979 revolution. First of all, Iraq is sometimes called Arab Iran, although don't say that to them, as they have the second highest population of Shias and hold two incredibly important holy
Yeah, I know Iraq used to be way more like Iranic.
Shia sites. They've mostly moved on from the war in the 80s, and the two have good
Iraq was kind of Arabized at first.
ties, mostly. Afghanistan and Tajikistan are like their cousins that have different political views, and it's awkward when they have dinner together, but nonetheless, they still mostly get along. Russia and Venezuela are probably the best friends outside of the Middle East, as Hugo Chavez frequently visited Ahmadinejad and made numerous trade deals. The Iranian car company Hodro is imported and partially manufactured in Venezuela, and Russia was like a key ally in many of the war conflicts post-revolution. Surprisingly, they are also one of the few countries that have kind of decent ties to North Korea. They've pledged cooperation in education and cultural spheres in the past. The Azerbaijanis of the north, of course, love Azerbaijan, no surprise. Bahrain is like Saudi Arabia's girlfriend that they keep trying to flirt with and steal. When it comes to their best friends, though, most Iranians I talk to have said probably Syria and Turkey, although it's a little complicated, especially with all the current drama going on. Turkey and Iran have more or less always been on good terms, especially in business. They are working on a plan to enter the European petroleum industry.
The government
Russia. Each country makes up a large population of tourists that visit each other every year. Syria, or more specifically the Syrian government, has more or less worked alongside with Iran numerous times in the past and has been a key ally not only in diplomacy but also strategically, as they kind of give them access to the Mediterranean. In conclusion, Iran is kind of like a land that is constantly trying to figure out a way to reconcile the revolutionary ideals upon a fast-paced social media-induced generation of quiet culture rebels while simultaneously dealing with outside stigma. What will Iran look like in 20 years? I don't know, but one thing we do know is that the young people will be ruling it. Stay tuned. Iraq is coming up next.
This was mad interesting though, and I know like there's a lot of that northern region of the Middle East wasn't even really like Arabic or Semitic before. But yeah, pretty damn interesting. Oh, I guess besides the Assyrians, but Iran I know, sort of, you know, the Achaemenid Persians, they've had access to the Mediterranean in the past at least, but nowadays they don't, of course. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Let's check out Flag/Fan Friday. Iran. Let's go.
Welcome back to Flag/Fan Friday. Hope you liked the Iran episode. Alright, so very quickly, one thing I got kind of wrong in the episode was the Armenian monastic ensembles of Iran. I accidentally used this picture. However, I believe this is the correct image. You have to admit, they look pretty freaking similar though. Like they both are built on a cliff with two conical steeples and one's big, one's small. Oh, and when I wrote the script, I didn't even realize, but I didn't even mention any notable people from Iran like I usually do. It just blew past like, I didn't even realize it. So very quickly, here are just a few notable people from Iran. King Cyrus.
Oh yeah, of course, Cyrus, yeah. Probably more like Kairos.
Xerxes, Zoroaster, poets Ferdowsi and Attar of Nishapur, Ulugh Beg, graphic novelist Marjan Satrapi, who made that really cool Persepolis comic and movie, Mandana,
and An Amazing City, yeah.
Karimi, Shahab Hosseini, and gold medalist Hadi Saeh. And of course there's a lot more, but we don't really have too
I'm more familiar with the ancient guys.
much time to get into that because this is Flag Friday. We got to talk about the flag. Which, by the way, I think you're going to like this episode because you know why.
Darius.
Alright, without further ado... Alright, the flag of Iran is pretty cool.
A nice ass flag.
Because it kind of has like a lot of hidden messages in it. First of all, the flag is a horizontal tricolor of green, white, and red with the national emblem in the center.
I like the old national emblem better. The one with the lion in the sun, though. It looked a bit like old. Get it. This one, I think this one's so much more epic, actually. And maybe if it had some of those lines, though. Those lines are kind of cool, though. Those intricate patterns. But yeah, still. I like this flag better. Oh, a flag like this would also be pretty cool. But in general, I think this flag was a lot nicer. I like the symbol. I always thought it was really cool. That would actually be pretty epic, too, all things considered. But yeah, let's get back to this.
The green stands for culture growth, happiness, unity, nature, and the Persian language. The white stands for freedom, and the red stands for... Once again, thank you, Ken, for making that animation. By the way, guys, you can check him out on Instagram. He has an Instagram. He has a lot of cool stuff on it. Now, here's where things get a little technical. You can see that on the central facing edges of both the green and red bars is a pattern-looking thing. Those are actually the words Allahu Akbar, written in the stylized Kufic script 11 times on each side, making it 22 times repeated to represent the 22nd of the month of Bahman in the
Looks cool, though.
Iranian
A lot of religious stuff on the flag.
calendar, which landed on the 11th of February of 1979, which marked the beginning of the Islamic Republic. In the middle lies the national emblem, or the Tawhid, a stylized symmetrical composition of images that looks like a crescent and swords. However, they are actually letters forming an overlapping monogram of the Shahada, which is the Universal Declaration of Islam, meaning there is no God except for Allah, all shaped in the form of a tulip-looking image. So
Personally, I like the sun and the line better.
basically, they mashed a bunch of letters together to say something. Kind of like the Louis Vuitton logo, or Chanel, or Gucci, or the Geography Now logo. Now just keep in mind, these images are actually relatively recent in contrast to Iran's history and other variants in the past. During the Achaemenid Empire,
Oh man, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful
they
flag.
used the Shabazz falcon, and during the modern era,
Beautiful. This one's a little bit creepy, but beautiful.
between the 16th and 20th centuries, they used variants of lions on their emblems, and finally during
And they actually have lions as compared to Europe.
the last imperial state, they used the sovereign coat of arms, which looked like this under the Shah
Beautiful.
times until he was
Beautiful.
deposed and the
Absolutely
revolution began. And that's about it. We don't have to do a coat of arms section because the emblem is kind of what they use. So yeah, we just killed two birds with one stone. Woohoo! Minimal effort. Which means you know what time it is.
Alright, that was pretty damn cool. Iran, epic country. Let's check out some Geography Now Iran comments. Let's go to the comments section. Thousands of years of empires, dynasties, conflicts, and revolutions with a splash of saffron and a pinch of punk rock. Welcome to Iran. Oh, and thanks to all the Iranian geography peeps that helped out with this video. Enjoy! In Italian language, there are a lot of things named after Persia. Beyond the obvious, Persian cats' window blinds are called persiane, while peach, the fruit, was called persica. In ancient Latin, in modern standard Italian, it has become pesca, but in Roman dialect, the old Latin term is still alive and kicking. Probably in maybe the Sardinian, the language / dialect. Yeah, it's a language though. It'd probably be more similar. Oh, one last thing. The Gulf is called Golfo Persico, not Arabico, by us too. That's cool. Iran is a really beautiful place. Much love from Afghanistan. Love in Iran from Norway. I love Iran no matter what my country says. US love Iran from USA. That's nice, yeah. I think Iran's a cool country. Respect Iran, yeah. The history, I love Iran. Yeah, respect the people. I'm not a big fan of the government, but yeah, respect the freaking people and the history, yeah. Away from politics, as a Muslim, I respect the Iranian people from Saudi. Dear Iran, I know our governments don't exactly get along, but I love your culture and your food looks amazing. I hope the best for Iran and the Iranian people. Love from the US. Glad to see how the US love for Iran. Oh, and thank you. Would be happy to be a host one day and, of course, serve some of our amazing foods. We Iranians love Americans and their cultures too. Maybe our governments have conflict, but that doesn't mean we have any problems with you. I am an Iranian in the US. Thank you so much. Love from us Iranians. No matter what happens, we can still get along. We love you too, bro. Thanks. Yeah. I'm Bulgarian and we come from Iran. Love Persia. From old friend India. Much love and respect from Afghanistan to my cousins, Iran. Greetings to all Iranians from Romania. I know few Iranians and they are good, so good people. I love them a lot. Big love. Hello from Tajikistan to all my Iranian and Afghan brothers. Hello to my Iranian brothers and sisters. Much love from Greece. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings to Iran. Love from Pakistan. The Persian Gulf was there and belonged to Persia before Arabs were known to man. As an Iranian reading the comments down below, I'm really proud of people sending love and positivity to us all. To us. Love to all of you. Respect to our Iranian cousins from India. Love Iran from a Kurdish. We are brothers, but not politically, unfortunately. As an Iranian, I have to say I've no idea where you get your info, but it's spot on. And I love your conclusion that young people will be ruling Iran in 20 years. I love Persia, Iran. Big hug from Italy. All the Iranian foods are very famous in India. Love from India to Iran. As an Arab, it is the Persian Gulf. Greetings from someone who is half Dutch and Polish. Iran is an amazing country with beautiful things and stunning history behind it. Also, it's the land where Electra Boom was born. Fancy it. I'm from Saudi Arabia, although my government is kind of fighting with the Iran government. But I have a lot of Iranian friends and we're cool just because our governments are fighting. Doesn't mean we have to as well. Love Iran from India. Alright, brothers. It's a shame such a beautiful country is shown as just a wasteland most of the time. Love to Iran from the United States. Love knows no borders. Edit. Would love to visit sometime. You will be welcomed. Can't wait to welcome you. Amazing. Yeah, I heard the Iranians are very welcoming and friendly. Iranians are very, very beautiful. In my opinion, they are the most good-looking people from India. Love Iran and Iranian people. Greetings from Brazil. Love Persia from Ethiopia. We call Persians Fars and King Cyrus Kiros. One day I will visit Persepolis. I would like to visit Persepolis as well one day. I've never seen a foreigner describe Iran so good. Keep it up, bro. I am Greek and I like Iran and the history of Persia. Love to Iran from the US. US loves Iran. Thanks, bro. Man, this is all nice. I love the comments. Great video. Respect to Iran and Iranians and the history of the people. Yeah, so really enjoyed watching. Any Iranians watching, comment down below. And make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Yeah, and so if you enjoyed my reaction, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.